Okay? So, Europe, right? A long time ago.
Because to us, Latin and Greek are almost the same thing.
Well, that's something that we need to change. So, the Greek Empire was from long ago, 4,000 years ago, roughly, 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. And they had their own language. They also had a different alphabet, right? They had different letters. And from their letters, some people up here built their own language. And the people up here ended up giving their language to the Romans. Okay? So, Rome, this is the center of their empire. The Roman Empire covered pretty much everything you see here. All of this. Now, the problem is, the Romans used Latin. They brought Latin to England, and then a few hundred years later, the Roman Empire fell. Rome died, right? We had all of these people coming from Asia across into Europe. They came down here, and then they destroyed the Roman Empire. But also, Romans were very corrupt, so their empire fell. We can put that down as around 500 AD. Okay? Roughly around that time, this empire fell, and their language had to break into different groups. So these people used one form, these people used a different form, they had their own form. But the Roman language, Latin, wasn't as common anymore. One simple reason for that is it's really, really hard. If you think English is hard, you should learn Latin. Latin is extremely difficult. In fact, in order to use Latin, you need to go to university, or at least high school, okay? So what happens when all the schools die? What happens when the school system, the education falls apart? No more teachers, yay! Everybody gets to go home and work on the farms, right? You have everybody working in the fields, working on farms. Nobody has time for school. Nobody can learn Latin. So the Latin language was lost. It broke down into something easier. But while that was happening here, we had something else up here. These people went across into England. Those were the Anglo-Saxons. So Rome fell, and we have two groups actually. The Anglos and the Saxons went to England. You should recognize here where we get the word England from, right? Now, Rome left an influence in England. The name London is not an English name. London is a Latin name. So, a lot of the Roman influence was left there. There's a lot of Latin left on the island. But these people, their language was based on something like German. Their language was very similar to German, which is why we have a lot of those words now, like go. Go, went, gone, right? Pretty much any time you have a verb where we have this part here, right? 我吃, I eat. 我吃了. "今天我吃, I eat. 昨天我吃, I ate. 我吃了, 我吃饱了, right? 吃了, eaten. We have these words, and the reason why they do this is because that's the pattern in German. That's what German does. So English and German started out from the same language, from the same background. But then we had another problem.
Well, I have a question. So eat, ate, eaten. You mean the eat, en.
Mhm.
So large. Soft, soften.
This is
Sharp, sharpen.
a German pattern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sharp, sharpen, soften.
The German
Widen.
infinitive follows this. So, for example, essen. This is to eat. And the past participle also has this en ending. So, yeah, we see a lot of relationships between our words because they come from the same mother language. But that also makes them really hard to use. Like take off. This word take, took, taken, same background. That's what makes it so hard because we can't do much else with it. But also, it has been in our language the longest. So it has developed a lot of different uses. This vocabulary is from 1500 years ago. It's been around for a long time, so it's changed. Around 800 or so, we have these people up here. They don't like England, they don't like anybody. They run around and they kill and they steal and they wear helmets with horns on them. They believe in gods like Thor, right? So, who are these people?
North Europeans are pirates
Yeah,
or Viking.
the Norse, the Vikings.
Vikings.
All right, we have the Vikings come over, and they make a difference as well. They leave some of their language. At that time, there were still enough people using Latin that we had some mixing going on, but pretty much they come into England and they cause one very important development, our very first English book. Whenever a language uses books, it's a very important development because once you have the language written down, it becomes standard. Whoever wrote the language first, it's his language that everybody else will end up using. So, we have this important development, this change, and then, notice how close France and England are, right? They must be really good friends, right? But they hate each other. They always have. So, England sent some kings over to France, and then France wasn't happy. And then finally, all the English kings were dead. When all the English kings died, this was in 1066, about 1,000 years ago, the French came to England. And they stayed there for 300 years. For 300 years, the English were ruled by a French king.
So who is the forefather of the current Queen Elizabeth?
The problem with that question is all of the royal families are related.
Oh, okay.
So I tried to make sense of it one time because I was teaching it for a class, and I tried to follow all of the different kings. It's impossible. They're all related. That's why they're all usually sick. Most of the kings and queens in England were not healthy because they all married their cousins. They were all related.
Okay.
So they said the Queen Victoria was the mother of Europe because her children were married to every country in Europe. So yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, there is an answer for that. I haven't figured it out. But so for 300 years, England was ruled by French kings. That meant that the rules, the laws were French. Also then, the commerce was in French. Trade, business was in French. Education was in French, right? All of the important things that happened in the language were French. for 300 years, and then we finally kicked the French out, and England was English again. Now, something interesting happened around this time. Remember, Rome died. So around 500 or so, 500, 600, the Roman Empire fell apart. The Roman Empire did one thing that was really important. Through all their history, the single most important thing that they did was they built roads. Everywhere there were roads that go to Rome. That's why we have that expression, all roads lead to Rome. Because all of the roads started there. They built roads everywhere. That was the internet 2,000 years ago, right? It allowed for communication.
And there's another sentence. Rome wasn't built in one day.
Yeah. It took a long time, but it burnt down in only 3 days. Yeah.